Senator Hirono, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We know that there is a workforce shortage in just about every business, every industry, from restaurants to the defense industry. This is for Mr. Taylor. The DoD has established the Defense Civilian Training Corps to attract top talent into the defense ecosystem and specifically relating to acquisitions. So how is this training corps doing in terms of attracting the kind of people that the defense industry needs?
Thank you for the question. I think Dr. Locke would be more familiar with that particular DTC program.
Thank you. I'll note that there are actually currently several STEM employment workforce coordination programs going on in the Department of Defense, and certainly that one's among them. I believe that these programs would be far more effective if there was a greater degree of coordination among them. For example, sharing of hiring objectives and even of candidates. Likewise, to the other senator's point earlier, providing metrics for such programs would be very important.
Well, why isn't there coordination? Why aren't there metrics to measure the effectiveness of these programs? Whose responsibility is it to ensure those aspects are addressed?
Thank you for the question. As to the particular statutory authority, I'll take that for the record. I will note that a mandate to coordinate among programs to share best practices, to ensure that these programs are appropriately targeted to market and are adequately innovating would be very effective, and I believe that's something that the Congress and the Senate in particular can draw greater attention to.
Okay, you can help us, my staff, to better focus on some of those kinds of changes if we need to change. Mr. Taylor, I was particularly gratified that you mentioned that if we want people to have STEM experiences in education, that it's really something that we should look at from pre-K to 12, and that we also should pay attention to diversity. So yes, Senator Rosen has a bill that would encourage, I think, more emphasis on these kinds of programs. I have a bill that would focus on women and minorities in STEM education. What ideas do you have that would focus us on the need for paying attention to K-12 and onward if we want more people to be STEM educated?
So thank you for that question. I had the good fortune of once running what was called the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, which represents the country's publicly supported historically black colleges and universities, 47 of them. In fact, Mr. Gates here was my colleague. We specifically created a program where we went into 3 markets that were largely populated with historically underrepresented people, and we took kids who were between the ages of, and I want to get the numbers right, 9 and 13, with a specific focus on taking those kids in after-school programs that were STEM-oriented to expose those children and their families and to STEM careers, but more importantly, the importance of taking certain types of curriculum early on so that by the time, if you wanted to go to college to be an engineer, there are things you needed to do in high school, courses you had to take, et cetera. So we mapped them. We gave them, oftentimes their families didn't have parents who were college graduates, or if they were college graduates, they weren't STEM college graduates. We literally took those kids and we followed them through 10th grade, preparing them up to and including taking the SAT, ACT, et cetera. So those sorts of programs helped us yield a significantly higher number of future STEM workers from those communities than would have without them.
So you're saying that we have to be very intentional
Yes.
about how we're going about it, and that you have some longitudinal data that shows that when you are this focused, that you will have people going into the STEM areas. Because, for example, women and minority people drop out of the STEM pipeline at every step of the way, because especially for women, for example, there are not very many models for women in STEM. And in terms of workforce training, we are building a dry dock at Pearl Harbor Shipyard. It is the biggest infrastructure project that the DoD is engaged in. It is $3.5 billion I hope that it will come in at that price. But they had a hard time finding workers for this project. Some 2,000 plus workers will be needed to build this dry dock over the next 2 years or so. And in the meantime, we have an apprenticeship program for the Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard, one of 4 public shipyards that we have. They had 2,500 applicants for 152 positions. So obviously, there are a lot of people who want to get this kind of training so they can be in the pipeline to work in our shipyards, but we're not creating enough spaces for them. Do any of you have any ideas what we can do to accommodate these young people who want to be trained in our workforce? Anyone?
Yes. It's already been mentioned by a few of my colleagues here, but school-to-work training pipelines and close public-private partnerships with educational institutions are very effective at establishing firm pipelines for workers. We've demonstrated this many times in the private sector, particularly in the auto industry, in some of the states represented here, reinforcing the training at community colleges and trade schools and linking those skilled professions directly into where the jobs are needed.
Senator, apprenticeships powered by AI, I think that's where the future is, and that's what the private sector is not going to do enough without your prompting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Hirono. Senator Mullen, please.